Getting into this week, the name on the marquee has got to be Merab Dvalishvili, who this past weekend at UFC Fight Night, Jan versus Dvalishvili, defeated Petr Yan by a unanimous decision. It was a shutout on the scorecards, 50-45s across the board. Mark, let me bring you in first. What was your reaction to Merab winning impressively over the dynamite kickboxer in Petr Yan?
That Merab, who fought on Saturday night, and maybe just Merab, period, all the time, is the fighter with the greatest cardio and highest motor I have ever seen in the history of MMA. That was unbelievable. And Petr Yan did well to, wrestle defensively. He stuffed a ton of takedowns, 30-something takedowns. If I told you he was going to do that before the fight, you would have been like, well, I guess this is going to go well for Petr Yan. He got up a ton of times. He snuck in elbows on breaks or landed a nice body kick or check hook, and none of it mattered because you can't win a fight when you have to react the entire fight, and that's what Yan had to do. He could never for a second think about working his own game because he was reacting for 99.9% of that fight. Merab is in your face like we have rarely seen in this sport. And he's not any kind of special striker, but he doesn't have to be because he is shooting for so many takedowns and grabbing for so many legs that you're so concerned with it that he can land clean on you. And then as soon as you switch gears finally and you say, all right, shit, I can't keep letting this guy hit me, then he's in on your hips. So for a guy to have a motor like Merab does is almost a cheat code, honestly. It's just so hard to combat. And honestly, the guy who could have maybe done it the best is Jose Aldo. And I hate that stupid fight that happened, and I wish we could see it again, not at elevation. But I digress.
Yes.
Back to this performance. The man had 49 takedown attempts. Landed only 11, but 49 takedown attempts and 147 significant strikes. Who even has the energy to attempt those numbers? So for someone to just run Petr Yan off the tracks the way Merab did in that fight is not something I ever thought I would see, and I have come away very impressed by Merab.
Omar, let's bring you in here. Give us your reaction of the wrestling barrage that Merab threw at Petr Yan.
It makes Colby Covington look very, very lazy.
somehow brings it back to Colby.
I mean, let's be real. As much as I don't like Colby, that dude has one of the best cardios in the game.
Yeah, man, of course.
He's got almost an infinite motor, but he does slow down. I don't really know if Merab slowed down. That man kept a consistent pace for 5 rounds.
25
and
minutes.
It really got to a point where he didn't even give a shit about the takedowns. It didn't really have anything to do with the takedowns. It had to do with Petr Yan worrying about the takedowns. So Merab would grab his leg, just touch it real quick, mess with him. Hey, here I go. Oh, no, uppercut. Oh, no, right hand. And that was pretty much the course of the fight. It got to the point where by the end of the fight, Petr Yan was like a pirate. He was just one eye, just all kinds of fucked up. I've never seen anything like that in my life. We've seen Usman, we've seen GSP, we've seen a lot of guys that rely on the takedown to find a path to victory. Merab, it just seemed like Merab was fucking with him for 5 rounds. Just outpaced him and just was like, either I'm going for a takedown or I'm going to punch you in the face. And you're not going to have the energy or the speed to stop both. You can stop one, but I'm going to pop you with the other, or I'm going to take you down. It was a wild performance, man. And I didn't really think that. I figured Yan would find some way, right? Those takedowns weren't the cleanest, right? There are opportunities there to throw a knee or an uppercut or something like that, but he was overwhelmed, and you could see it, man. I don't think Petr Yan has ever been put in that kind of position in his life. I'm sure he trains very hard, but I don't think anybody's ever done that to him.
Oh, I'm sure he trains crazy hard.
Yeah.
It's just motor. I heard the basketball player J.J. Redick say this once. He was like, "You can't teach motor. Like it's kind of like a genetic thing almost, according to him. I believe
but it's also being exposed to different looks. It's guys are less panicky when they've seen something before, when they've thought about, because a lot of times you think about how you would counter it, what you would do, and whatever else, and a lot of times you train those things, but you can't, like you said, you can't train motor, you can't replicate motor.
You train cardio, but there's motor. Like a motor is just something different. It's like that gear. It's almost like a mindset more than it is actual like cardiovascular 100%. Health.
And there's no resets for Merab. Like Jan loves to analyze in there, to analyze space and analyze how he wants to re-engage and step back in and make you move. When there is no breather reset time, you kind of lose the ability to do that.
If you're a striker, you hate that fight. I mean, that fight is your fucking nightmare. That's the shit that keeps you up at night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it also, to me, is somewhat reminiscent of, or it made me think of Cain Velasquez and JDS, their second and third fights of what JDS, or rather what Cain did to JDS. Like, it was absolutely relentless to the point where it was kind of hard to watch.
I will say by the end of the fifth round, Cain Velasquez looked like he was done. Like, I did my job. I'm done. Merab finished this fight and was like, "We're done."
Yeah,
I thought we were at round one. I thought we could do another 5.
He looked like he could have kept going.
It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
I'm going to go
and
run.
It was just like, it was almost like he just won by overwhelmingness. Like, I don't know, maybe you guys felt different. I really didn't think Jan looked all that bad.
I'm with you.
It was almost just like, he never got a chance to try. Like, he just
didn't let him in.
Like, you wanted to be like, Merab, let Jan have a turn. And it just...
Yeah. He looked
agree.
confused. He looked confused. And I get it. I was confused watching. I can only imagine what that must have been like in front of you. Yeah. With a dude shooting on your leg, getting popped in the face. You know what I mean? Still trying to defend the takedown and then getting popped in the face again. That shit's got to be annoying, let alone eventually painful.
Yeah. Yeah, what an apt nickname the Machine has turned out to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where these guys go from here. Let's talk about bantamweight. Let's start with the winner, Mark. Give me a sense of where you would go next with Merab. Were you the UFC matchmaker?
I mean, it's very tricky, as we know. Obviously, Merab does not want to fight his boy, Aljo, which I respect. Dana White has already come out and tried to say that that might be the wrong choice, and you know what can happen when you turn down a title fight and yada, yada.
Real quick, not to interrupt, but I was listening to Ariel Helwani's show today. So apparently this is now the second time that he's had this conversation with Merab about fighting Aljo. And they got to a point where they didn't want to give Merab any top 5 contender fight because if he wins anybody, Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen, Peter Yan, he wasn't going to fight Aljo. So what was the point? And so it turns out Peter Yan was the one who pushed for this fight. That's the only reason that this fight actually came together. Wow. And now they are stuck in a situation where now you got the number 1 guy essentially and the champion not wanting to fight each other.
See, I don't think it's so big of an issue because they have publicly talked about how Aljo plans to take 2 more fights and then go up to featherweight. So unless he's going to rescind that plan, obviously at that point it's an issue. But even if first of all, if he loses to Henry, then everything is open right away. If he beats Henry and then loses the next fight, it's open. Or even if you got to wait 2 more Aljo fights, that means Merab only has to fight 1 more in the meantime. So we could certainly find a contender for him to fight. Like, for example, this is what I was just going to say. First off, I would be stunned if the UFC let him fight Sean O'Malley. I don't think there's a chance in hell that the UFC books that fight. Yeah, because I think they want Sean O'Malley in a title fight. And it sounds like he, prior to this, had been told he was going to get the winner of Henry and Aljo. I don't know if that still stands, but either way, I don't think they ever put him across the cage from Merab, at least not until he's champ. But what that leaves, as much as I hate it, is that you still have Chito Vera over there. And if he ends up beating Corey Sandhagen, he's not going to be able to fight for the title because you already told Sean O'Malley that he's getting the next one. So there is a guy for Merab to fight. Like, if Aljo wins and he's going to fight O'Malley, Merab can fight Cheeto. It works out perfectly fine. So I don't really know why Dana's being so dramatic about it. It sucks for Cheeto. Like, that would be a long, long road to the top to have Merab added to the end of it. If it's Corey that wins that fight and has to fight Merab, it would at least feel a little more fair. But, you know, I think there's options. I even think that if this shakes out weird in some way and you can't make Merab against the winner of that fight, I think if Ricky Simone beats Song Yadong, you could fucking run that fight back and settle that, because that's been years of kind of unsettledness since their first fight, and I even think that could be a decent filler.
It was the last time he lost was to Ricky Simone.
Yeah.
His first 2 fights, this is Merab. He lost his first 2 fights in the UFC, and he's won every fight since.
Who was the first one? I can't even think.
Frankie Sands.
Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Sands.
I remember looking
Split
at that
decision
last
loss to Frankie Sands.
And
then Ricky Simone got a guillotine on Merab. And he has been
that was in Atlantic City when me and Omar were there.
He didn't win by guillotine, though. That went to decision.
No, it says technical submission, so he choked him out.
Yeah.
What?
It was
Fight of the night.
Omar, we were there. It was on the Atlantic City card. It was
No,
Merab was winning the whole fight, and then Ricky Simone got him in a guillotine late.
No,
He
I remember.
never tapped. It looked like Merab made the bell.
It did,
Right.
yes.
And then as soon as he came off, there was like a 1 Mississippi where he behaved as if he was out. And then he kind of jumped right up.
Right.
And everyone was like, wait, what just happened? Was he out or was he just like laying there? And they ruled that he was out.
Yeah.
I don't remember them ruling it as him out. I remember all of that. I don't remember them ruling it as he was out. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's
The official
that
time.
Sucks.
I'm looking at it right here. The
That's
official
why
time.
I'm saying they've kind of debated the true winner of that fight ever since. Like, they've talked about it. So
I think that's the right call.
Well, Merab said he
I
doesn't
think-
want to. He
I
doesn't
think
want
he
to
said
fight
he
Ricky
wasn't out.
Simone. He doesn't want to fight Ricky Simone. He said he already beat Ricky Simone.
So that's what I'm saying. It's
and then
a
he won't fight
long-standing debate. He
said,
he
"I
won't
just-
fight him? Wow.
I just beat Jose Aldo. I beat Peter Yan. Why do I need? Why Ricky
That's so
Simone?
silly. The bell rings and you're not able to continue because you were in a choke.
Well, he says he wasn't out. That's what I'm
I-
saying. He
Right,
has
but
always
he
said he
was.
was not out.
Yeah, I've watched it back a couple times, and I didn't think he was out. I could see why. It just looked like a moment where he was like, "Fuck, I'm glad this is over."
It's
Not,
always
I'm
been
out.
tough. It's a weird one. It could go either way.
I did
Like,
not
we'll
know they
never
ruled
know,
it
I
like
feel.
that. That sucks.
So Merab claims that he thinks he held on enough and he didn't fully go out. That he
I
should
think
be.
he says that he was fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to say that.
Like, I think he contends that he was not close to going out.
Okay.
That he just...
Oh,
bell
I mean, well,
rang
he's
and
full
he
of
was just
shit
kinda
there. He looked like a grape when he got up.
A grape. Did you say
Dude,
a
he
grape?
his head was turning purple.
Oh, I see. Listen, let's move on here, and let's talk about Petr Yan, a guy who is. I'm a high on Petr Yan, man, and I still am. I'm not off the train yet, but my man has lost 4 of his last 5 in the UFC.
Well, one was by DQ, but
One was
3
by
losses
DQ.
that
That
are
was the
real,
first
yeah.
thing that kind of set this whole thing in motion here for him. He's not a happy man lately. Omar, let me start with you. If he doesn't retire, because after the last loss, he like kind of threatened retirement. He kind of needed some time to clear his head.
He sent a tweet already, or an Instagram post, I forget, that kind of alluded to that he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. He shouldn't. If you were the matchmaker, Omar, what would you want to do with Jan next?
With Petr Yan. Right at the very top of the division. Always at the very top of the division, but like, what can you do at this point? You kind of got to give him somebody else, and he hasn't fought everybody in the division at this point. He's fought in a lot of guys. A lot of it, he came off of the Uriah Faber win. He's got a lot of other sort of mid-esque people on his early UFC career. But he's got the Jimmy Rivera's, the Dotsons, the Aldo, and he kind of fucked Aldo up a little bit. So there is that. But where does he go right now? So I don't know how many of these guys have things lined up because it seems like everybody has something lined up in this division right now. But it might be worth it to see what perhaps the loser of the Marlon Vera Corey Sandhagen fight. That would probably be my guess. But I think Corey Sandhagen already fought him. So you would kind of hope that it would be Chito Vera. But does Chito Vera really need to fight him if he wins? Or Chito Vera would need to lose.
Certainly not.
In order for that to work. Yeah.
I'll throw two ideas at you. And I kind of love both. Keep in mind, the dude has lost 3 in a row. So
yeah,
I'm taking a slight step back from that top batch. I think him and Dominic Cruz would be awesome. Oh. And I could see Cruz take it.
Oh, my God.
I'm not saying take the fight. I'm saying I'm not saying win the fight. I'm saying I could see Cruz accept the fight.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, you were so offended. Or he could be the dude who welcomes Davison Figueiredo.
Oh, I love that. I love that
one.
so much.
I like that one better.
That's my preference. I think that one is sexy. That's why I
like that one better. That's a good one.
We've always kind of tossed around names for Figueiredo, and I feel like we never hit on one where we were all like, ooh, and I feel like Jan is in that spot right now where it makes a lot of sense.
Damn, but what do you do if they both lose? Or if either one of them loses? I mean, that's bad for either one of them at that point because Davidson's kind of coming off of those championship losses. He didn't look great in his last 2. I don't know.
Hey, man.
Hey.
It's swim with the sharks.
Swim with the sharks, baby.
Goddamn. All right, well, if he dies, he dies. All right, cool.
Dude, I think that...
Speaking of if he dies, we transition into... Drago.
Yeah, if it's true, Jesus. Yeah, let's move this this thing down the line here. Congrats to Merab, man. Great win, biggest win of his career, maybe the best he's looked ever.
Yeah.
He's like, oh God, he's like Clay Guida on steroids. Is that insulting?
Clay Guida. Clay Guida might not even have that cardio. I just think he's just on autopilot. He just goes.
Okay. All right. In the co-main event of this UFC fight night, in the heavyweight division, Alexander Volkov defeated Alexander Romanov by TKO at 2 minutes and 16 seconds of the very first round. Omar, let me start with you here. Give us your take on the techniques that Volkov threw at Romanov, ultimately getting him out of there in the first round.
There was something about this fight that made me feel like Volkov felt disrespected. He seemed very violent. He seemed very aggressive in the fight. And I don't know what it was, but he had this air of, this man doesn't belong in here with me. And he kind of beat the shit out of Romanov. It was kind of crazy. I think this was Mark's worst nightmare when it came to Romanov. And it was a fantastic... I mean, I haven't seen Volkov look better in quite some time. So he took full advantage of the opportunity to beat the hell out of somebody.
The second that I caught a glimpse of Alexander Romanov, I knew that I had fucked up this pick. That dude who came out on Saturday looked like he ate Alexander Romanov. I don't know what the fuck that was. Apparently his coach moved to Russia and he had to find a new team.
He could run.
He could run. Like, if this physique has any relation to that team, I think it's time to find a new team. But he looked awful. Like a literal shadow of himself. I mean, Volkov stuffed his early takedown attempts easily. I think he smelled blood in the water right after he stuffed them, just from the way Romanov was moving. And he was like, oh, all right, I'm going to take this dude out right now. And he did. He turned it up. He could tell Romanov wasn't reacting well to the first couple shots, and he put him out. So props to Alexander Volkov. He needed that win to stay in the mix, and he got it. And they were kind of trying to use him as almost a stepping stone for an up-and-comer there. And he turned him back in statement fashion. But to me, the story of that fight is the ghost of Alexander Romanov that showed up. I mean, this is a dude who walked through 4 guys in the UFC looking about as dominant as a heavyweight can look. Just absolutely I can't think of the fucking word I was trying to say. My mind is blanking. But absolutely crushing guys. And then he dropped a 10-8 on Marcin Tybura in his last fight in round 1. And then he guessed, and he blew that fight. And then he showed up here looking like he didn't even want to be here. So I don't know what has happened between drubbing is the word I wanted to say before. Between drubbing Marcin Tybura in round 1 and this fight. But either we're going to get a big Alexander Romanov redemption story or his story might be over as quickly as it started.
Yeah. Yeah. When he came out, I too was like, something's different. My man missed some cardio. I'm not trying to be mean, but he looked very heavy. He looked like he had a lot of bad weight on his body. Yeah. And it's like, hey, some guys do well when they have a lot of body fat. You don't need a six-pack to get to a high level in fighting sports. And there are a number of guys that I could point to make that point. But
that excuse is garbage, though, about his coach. Like, I get it. I get that.
You're a pro, though.
But,
You're a pro.
you can, as far as...
He didn't say that.
Oh, no?
He didn't make the excuse.
Oh, I thought that's something he said.
No,
okay.
I just said on the broadcast they said that his coach moved to Russia and he had to find a new team.
Okay.
So I was just pointing it out.
I mean, Homeboy could have definitely went for the runs and done the work to at least get to some sort of fighting shape that he was in. It's not like this is the way he's been fighting. You know what I mean?
No. But sorry, Mike, what were you saying?
I don't know. It's okay. It's gone. Let it go. It's in the stream. Volkov, Mark, talk about where Volkov is going to go from here.
Honestly, I don't think there's an obvious choice. I think heavyweight is kind of a little crowded. I think you got to see how some things shake out. I don't hate if you asked him if he wanted to run him back with Derek Lewis, which he may take since that's a loss. I'm sure he'd like to get back. You could do him in Ty. You could do him in Spivak, but they may end up even fighting each other, those two. So I don't think there's a clear choice for Volkov at the moment until maybe a couple more fights play themselves out.
Omar, any other ideas for Volkov?
I mean, not really. I mean, everything that Mark said is kind of true. You know, there's not a ton of movement right now with the heavyweight division going back down to where Volkov is. A lot of these fights now we're looking at John Jones and trying to figure out who we're going to throw at John Jones and what he does. And I just don't think Volkov is there yet. I don't really move him up from beating Romanov. So any one of those choices would be fine. The Spivaks, the Tuivasas, the Lewises.
Staying with you, Omar, what about Romanov? What do you think happens with him next? Off a performance like this, how far
Hopefully
down?
He runs.
I was gonna say, I think he needs to figure his shit out. If we're being wholly honest, he definitely needs to figure his shit out. But then you give him somebody to kind of prove himself, I guess. I'm not sure what the bookings are for these guys, but I'm gonna throw a couple out. Somebody like a Chris Barnett or a Tanner Boser would work for me. I think he's got to prove himself against some of those guys, and that might be even higher than where Mark is going. Who knows?
Totally, Mark. Take it.
No, I'm going higher than that. I mean, Boser's kind of on point. I think Barnett is maybe a little too far back. But I was looking at a couple other guys who seemed good for a time and now have been losing. In Augusto Sakai, obviously he just recently bounced back, and Chris Daukaus. I feel like, all three of those guys could use a win over someone who's relevant. So putting Romanov with either of them makes some sense.
Like it. Okay, let's move on. Congrats to Volkov for looking great yet again, reminding us that he is pretty fucking high level at heavyweight.
Yeah, man, he looked scary in that one. He really did. Props to him.
He definitely did.
One point where he walked towards him with his hands down. You know what I'm talking about? That moment?
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, he's gonna fuck him up.
Dude, honestly, there's one frame where he came towards him for a 1-2, and he just had this face that still now is burned in my memory, where you could see he was trying to fuck him up. Like, there was no hesitation. It's not great.
Okay, in a main card bout that was supposed to be the headliner for its own fight night a few weeks ago. Nikita Krylov took on Ryan Spann. And Krylov walked away with the victory by submission via triangle choke in the first round, the official time 3:38. Mark, let me toss it over to you first. Give us your take of Krylov getting it done over the always dangerous and powerful Ryan Spann.
Fun fight while it lasted. Both guys came out swinging. They both ate a couple early, and then it really turned into a grappler's delight. We saw some awesome scrambles in there from both guys. We saw both guys threaten some subs. Spann had his shot at a guillotine, which he loves. Couldn't pull it off. And he was sub-hunting the whole time, but Krylov was flowing in those grappling exchanges. Every time Spann got free, Krylov would immediately beat him to the next spot. He was always landing in the advantageous position. And then when Spann finally shakes him off, he just dives back into an instantaneous triangle. So it was a hell of a job from Krylov in a dangerous fight. He showed once again that he is dangerous anywhere you take him in a fight, which always makes him a live dog, even as he maybe starts to get opportunities against these top guys now. And I said it last week. I think we are in the midst of the best Nikita Krylov we have seen in the UFC thus far.
For sure, man, for sure. Omar, give us your reaction to Krylov looking great and ultimately finishing Spann in the first round.
He absolutely looked great on the ground, man. Spann also looked great, I thought. I thought he looked really good. He was really aggressive. The transitions were great. There were definitely moments, though, where he got a little sloppy. He was kind of out of balance, out of position, and it cost him. Especially when you fight a guy like Krylov, who is looking for those opportunities. These high-level jiu-jitsu guys are looking for the smallest opportunity to take your back, or to take a choke, or to take an arm, or at least to take a sweep or a position. It doesn't really take very much. And Spann, I think, gave up more than one opportunity for that to happen, and he paid for it, man. And it sucked, because I thought he did look good. I was hoping it would work out for him, but it did not. So,
yeah,
on to the next one.
So moving right along here, even though this happened at a catch weight because of the sort of snafu that happened with the scheduled fight a few weeks ago, this is a light heavyweight bout. So tell me, Omar, what would you do with Nikita Krylov next at 205?
Again, not sure what the resume says that there's up next for these guys. But I definitely think I would probably put him up against Ratchik at this point, Alexander Ratchik. That would be my choice.
Okay, Mar?
Yeah, so he was asking for Jan, apparently, Blachowicz. I don't know if we are going to be running back Jan and Magomed or not. I kind of assumed that they would, but we haven't heard a word about it, so maybe it's not happening. And if they're not, I am down for Jan and Krylov too. It's been 5 years since the first one. As I just said, I think Krylov is significantly better now than he was then, and that'd be a fun-ass fight. But if not that, the other name I was going to throw out was Alexander Rakic. He's back pretty soon. He was, pretty high in the ranks, and he's going to need a guy to step back in, and I think that's a good one.
Nice. What about Ryan Spann? Mark, sticking with you here.
I think Spann and Ozdemir is probably what makes the most sense to me. They're both right there. They're both coming off losses to Krylov. I do think Spann could pass that test, and I think it helps his resume to do that. So I think put those two in there and see what Spann can do.
Nice. What about you, Omar? Any other ideas?
Yeah, that was my one. I'm trying to see now if he has ever... Yeah, if not him, maybe Paul Craig, just to throw another name out there.
Thought about that too.
Especially just watching the grappler's delight that was that last fight. Paul Craig, I think, is a little crazier, but still very tight when it comes to the submission game. So I think it'd be a nice, playful fight as far as that part is concerned. But I honestly, I don't know, man. I'm wavering on Spann. It's getting difficult for your boy.
How so? How do you mean?
I think about it. I think about against Ozdemir and Craig. I think he could beat Ozdemir. I don't think Ozdemir is going to be looking to take him down all so much, but I worry about his the tendencies he has to be sloppy when it comes to striking and his positions. Like, you hear a lot of guys talk about, position over submission and stuff like that, and a lot of times he doesn't necessarily follow that mantra, if you will. And he keeps getting screwed as a result. He's got a winning record, so it's not like I don't want to talk too much shit, but once you start getting into this funnel that is the top 5 and, the top 10, top 5, like the room for error is infinitely smaller than what it was in the top 25, in the top 35. And this is where a lot of guys tend to get exposed for their flaws. And I just hope Ryan Spann is smart enough to maybe come back and fix some of this shit, because he's not going to win any fights in the top 5 where he's losing position, where he's just off balance. It's not going to happen. These guys are technicians in the top 5. So
yeah, man.
I think he can do it, man. I just hope he does.
Okay, moving right along here. In the bantamweight division, UFC Fight Night, Jan versus Dvalishvili, Jonathan Martinez gets it done over Saeed Nurmagomedov by unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. Omar, let me start with you. With the flex, give us your reaction.
Yeah, baby. I don't even know if he won that fight, but I got that pick right, baby. Let's go. Let's go. That, truthfully, that was a very difficult fight to score. I do not envy the judges in that particular fight. I can't really tell you what I thought or who I had winning. That fight was all over the place.
Yeah.
I thought Nurmagomedov might have done enough to win the 2 out of the 3 rounds. I want to say 1 and 2. But I mean, it was close. Giving me an argument that Jonathan Martinez won 2 and 3, I don't hate it. You know what I mean? 2, I think, was the closest round, I think, out of all of them, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a good fight. It was a really good fight. And I think nobody gave Martinez a shot in hell, really, when it came to Nurmagomedov. And I thought he put on a fantastic showing. I thought it was a great accord of himself. So I was glad he got the win. It was a close fight, though. And I know people were mad about it.
Mark, bringing you in here for Martinez getting it done over Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, I guess I don't hate the decision because 2 and 3 were competitive rounds. And if you want to tell me you gave them both to Martinez, I can't be too mad at you. I didn't love the decision. I do think it should have gone Saeed's way. He was awesome early. He was a freaking whirlwind of weapons, as he often is in round 1. Teeps, straights, calf kicks, head kicks, spinning elbows. He came out. And then even the takedown, the back take, choke attempts. Round 1 was a show from Saeed. And to Martinez's credit, he did bounce back from that when early it looked like, wow, he is getting friggin' blitzed here. He needed that clinch against the fence. That's kind of, I feel like, what brought him back into this fight. He had some good shots. I still think, in round 2, that despite the periods of clinching against the fence, I still thought Saeed did more before and after that period where he was stuck on the fence, which is why I'm not thrilled about the decision. And round 3, I do think Martinez did better. He kind of started to accumulate some damage with the calf kicks. But I don't know. I feel like it was a lot of clinching from Martinez in that fight where he wasn't doing so much with the clinch. And I felt that the reason for it was because he was losing most of the striking exchanges and most of the grappling exchanges. So I don't love him being the winner of that fight. But, he toughed it out and got himself a W. So good on him.
I will say, having Martinez adjust to the fact that he was kind of getting... Excuse me. Hello. Hey.
Pardon the interruption.
Fucking up my wall, dog. Anyway, sorry. So Martinez making the adjustment to hold him against the clinch, because what it did nullify a lot of his forward movement, a lot of his attacks. Definitely nullified all of that long range shit that Martinez was getting smashed with. And it allowed Martinez to open up with elbows and knees, and really good knees. So I don't hate the adjustment. I do think that there is a case to be made that there was more damage done by Martinez in that second round to Nurmagomedov. And just for a little bit of sprinkles on here, I went to MMA Decisions here.
Yeah, I looked at their shit too. It doesn't even, it's like backwards rounds.
What do you mean?
They gave Saeed the third and Martinez the second.
Yeah.
And we're both saying the opposite.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. But I figured even if you take it and swap it around.
I didn't even look at the overall. Who did more people score it for?
Nurmagomedov.
More for Nurmagomedov?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, to Martinez's credit, which is kind of what I meant at the end when I was saying you got to give him credit. Like you said, he did make the adjustment. He did find a way to kind of corral Saeed. And if you told me before the fight that Martinez was going to be able to clinch Saeed and hold him against the fence, I'm not sure I would have thought that would happen. Mm-hmm. So to even accomplish that was something. I don't want to take away from him. He's a talented kid. He's on his way up here. But, I saw a lot of good things from Saeed in that fight, so it's a tough loss for him.
Yeah,
Cub Swanson was not impressed with Martinez.
Let's quickly discuss the near future of these two gentlemen. Mark, give us a name for the winner here, Jonathan Martinez.
How about Cody Garbrandt?
How about it?
Great movement from Cody. Can he avoid the leg kicks of Martinez? Can Martinez, who does get hit, avoid a big bomb from Cody? What happens in the wrestling? I think it's a fun fight.
Nice. Omar?
I actually like the Cody Garbrandt one. Cody Garbrandt needs something fun, something real, something worth it. That last fight was bad for all the reasons. I like it. I say I'll go with the Cody Garbrandt as well.
Any names you guys want to quickly throw out for Saeed?
I will throw out a man we're going to talk about in a little bit who won on this card, which is Victor Henry. I think that they are similarly ranked. Saeed is, I think he had jumped into the rankings. He's back out now. I don't think Henry is that far outside of them, and I think they could put on a really fun fight.
Nice.
Damn.
Any other bright ideas, Omar?
Maybe somebody like a Javid Basharat.
Okay.
That could also
That'd be a
good
fucking
fight.
banger, too.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, moving on. One more recap, maybe two, before we hop into our lightning round. In the bantamweight division, Davey Grant gets a technical submission via inverted triangle choke over Raphael Assuncao. The official time, 4:43 of round 3. My goodness. Omar, let me start with you. The always exciting Davey Grant gets the win over the veteran of veterans in Assuncao. Give us your reaction.
Didn't give him the respect of a veteran. Davey Grant went forward the whole time, didn't give a shit, wasn't worried about nothing, was very, very aggressive and kind of had Assuncao on his back foot the entire time. To Assuncao's credit, he, early in the fight, I should say, he timed a lot of good takedowns, a lot of moments where he was able to get the fights at the ground, work from top, and kind of nullify a lot of what Davey Grant had to do. Davey Grant had a lot of good get-ups, though, and the fight I thought was pretty competitive through those 2 rounds. Once we got to the 3rd round, man, I don't know if they said something to Davey Grant or what happened, but he went out there and completely stunned Raphael Assuncao. Knocked him down with the right hand. Assuncao got back up and was like, muito bem. It just... And then he ends up getting head kicked, and then gets pushed around, and then gets taken down, and then he gets back up, and then he gets dropped again. I mean, it was... They got to the point where, obviously, in that scramble, Davey Grant ends up getting the inverted triangle choke. If you watch the replay, you could see Assuncao trying to go for a grip, a gable grip, so that he could pull and kind of create space in between the triangle-ness that was happening. And dude, I think he might have gotten like a quick touch of his hand, and then you could see it just break away. And we're talking maybe 2-3 seconds at most that triangle choke was in, and he was out cold. Yeah. I mean, Davey Grant put on a fantastic performance in that third round. You can't do it better than that to a veteran, no less.
Yeah, I'm always excited to see Davey Grant strike, but I was impressed by this submission he landed. Mark, let's bring you in. What was your reaction to Davey Grant getting it done over the veteran Assuncao?
Yeah, what a friggin' night for Davey Grant, man. I picked him in this one, but admittedly, I did it based on volume that I thought he'd be putting out and, like, you know, a few big ones landing to sway the judges. And for 2 rounds, he could barely hit Assuncao, man. I mean, we've always known this about Assuncao, but he is so good at not getting hit and at, like, frustrating guys and nullifying their games and managing to take rounds. And that's exactly what he was doing to Davey Grant through 2 rounds. Grant was trying to push a pace, but he wasn't really hitting Assuncao. Assuncao was just slicker. And then I think in round 3, Grant knew he was down 2 rounds and he had to really pour it on. And he did. The first big shot comes. Assuncao slows down a bit. Grant starts landing a little more. Catches him flush, stumbles him. Assuncao does manage the takedown. Grant gets up again. I mean, he was battling at this point. Cracks him some more times. The clock is ticking. You're wondering, can he pull off the comeback? Then we get the fence grab. Grant loses a point. Assuncao gets to reset. And you're like, all right, only a minute left now. It's a reset. Like, Assuncao's probably going to get out of here. And Grant friggin' pours it on again. Manages to hurt him again. Drops him with a spinning back fist that was beautiful. And then one of the craziest damn sequences you can think of as Assuncao starts scrambling and dives deep on the legs, and Grant just kind of lets himself fall over top and locks up a damn reverse triangle as he does it and puts Assuncao out cold with 17 seconds left in the fight for a freaking monster comeback and a monster win in the career of Davey Grant.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Staying with you, Mark, quickly, give us the name of who's next for Davey Grant.
I will say the loser of Pedro Munoz and Chris Gutierrez. I think either of those would be a great scrap and test for Davey Grant.
Any other ideas, Omar?
Honestly, dude, Mark is taking all the goddamn good choices. So we're just gonna stick with those. This is out of control.
You second the motion.
I do.
One more recap, gentlemen.
I want to give a quick shout out before we go. Raphael Assuncao retired after this fight.
Yes.
You know, I won't go into a whole huge thing for him, but he is a guy who's been a top bantamweight for a long, long time. Long UFC career. WEC guy before that. He's one of these guys that kind of just never got the title fight. Like, he was ranked number 2 and number 3 and number 4 for so long, and he never was able to get that one more fight to break through for the title fight. But he was a stud for a long time.
Yeah, man.
And had a quality career for sure.
For sure.
I definitely wish his last outing didn't involve him giving the Matumbo finger and then getting spinning back fisted in the fucking face.
No, he gave a thumbs up.
No. Go back and watch that. Because at one point he hit him and he was like, then he turned kind of.
Oh, I think you meant right before the spinning back fist. Because before the spinning back fist is a thumbs up. And people online were saying, like, that was bullshit by Davey Grant. Why would he hit him when he was giving him a thumbs up? And then
don't give a thumbs up.
And then there were comments like, bro, that was the 7th thumbs up he gave in the fight. Like, he can't just keep giving thumbs up expecting not to be hit.
No one asked you if you're good. No one.
For sure. Okay, last recap before we hop into our lightning round.
No, that was.
I thought Omar wanted to do Henry and Gravely.
Oh, my bad. What did we decide?
We'll throw it in the lightning round because I'm not going to pick next fights for them.
Okay, here we go. Lightning round for UFC Fight Night. Jan versus Dvalishvili. Mario Batista, round 1 sub over Guido Canetti. Omar, go first.
Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, what can you say, dog? Guido Canetti got sunned. He got completely sunned. Mario Batista looked like an animal, and there really wasn't that much to it. I mean, it was pretty quick. It was pretty to the point, and Canetti gets another loss on his record, man. That sucked. But Batista looked nasty. Absolutely nasty.
Mark?
Yeah, we said this last time that Batista fought. He is very good. Like, he's dangerous everywhere. He can finish in different areas. He's a tough puzzle to solve. I want to see this man in there with some guys who matter more than a Guido Canetti. No offense.
No offense, Guido.
It wasn't thumbs up. You were right. I don't know. I must have combined his earlier no with the thumbs up.
Okay. Light heavyweight Vitor Petrino defeats Anton How do you say Turkali?
Turkali, yeah.
Turkali by unanimous decision. 30-27, 30-27, 30-26. Mark, go first.
Yeah, it's your typical J pronounced as an I. I was thrown off as well.
Yeah.
Physically, Petrino looks like an absolute monster. He was landing some hammers in round one. I couldn't believe that he didn't finish Turkali with them. But then Turkali actually battles back, probably took round two, and we end up having a great fight the rest of the way. And to Petrino's credit, like I said, he probably dropped that round two. The judges didn't think so. I thought he did. And then Turkali has his back to start round three. So he was in a bit of a tough spot, and he shows you something by coming back, winning the fight from that point, and making sure he gets out of there with a W. So solid debut win for him. Definitely interested to see him again.
Omar?
I did have Petrino winning 2 out of the 3 rounds. I thought that Turkali,
they were just saying.
Turkali.
Yeah.
I did think that he won the second round.
Yeah.
I do think it was interesting that all 3 judges had the second round for Petrino. But it was a good showing for Petrino. Very dominant, I thought, all things considered.
Okay. Another lopsided one. Carl Williams unanimous decision over Lucas Brzeski. Omar, go first.
Okay, this one I thought was a little bit easier to figure out, right? Everybody was on board, I think. No judges were making shit up. I think this was 10 across the board for Williams. A pretty dominant win for him.
Mark?
This dude's a bit of an animal, huh? I mean, holy hell. I can't tell exactly what level he's on until I see him in there with like another opponent or two, but he was throwing Brzeski, I forget how you say his name. He was throwing him around. Some monster slams, great wrestling, aggression for days. He was willing to strike. He had good cardio for a heavyweight. I was watching it thinking like, man, this guy is pushing a pace. Like, let's see what happens here. Nothing happened. Pace just stayed. So that was an interesting debut for sure. Good job by Carl Williams.
What did you give him in the third round? Did you give him 10-8?
I think I had it 10-9 every round, if I recall. But I'm not sure I was watching so closely to see if it was 10-8 because I knew it didn't matter either way.
That's fair.
So
that's fair.
Okay. Let's see. Middleweight Josh Frem defeats Cedricus Dumas. Mark, take it.
Dumas looked as advertised for sure, like a dangerous dude, all 8 limbs, that kind of deal. But Frem did well, man. He's a tough guy, which helps. He chewed up the leg when he could. He found some key takedowns. And then by early round 2, Dumas looked like he was moving slower. And Frem just stayed poised, fought a real poised fight, and snatched up a guillotine for a needed first UFC win for him.
Omar?
Honestly, man, Dumas looked a little sort of mid, kind of not really super impressive, if we're being completely honest. I thought Frem showed a lot more aggression, a lot more like he had a plan in there. Dumas just kind of looked like he was just there, reacting, doing, whatever I guess was there. But Frem had a plan. He had a plan of what he was doing from the beginning of that bell all the way up until he choked that boy out. And I think you could see the real disappointment on that kid's face once he was done. I don't think he was fully prepared for that fight. And that's not to say that he didn't train. That's not to say that he didn't take it seriously. But I think there was something that was seriously missing from his comprehension of how he needed to fight that fight. And hopefully he comes back a little bit more prepared, whatever that ends up meaning. But him being better equipped to deal with what is about to happen to him in that cage.
Okay. Bantamweight's Victor Henry defeats Tony Gravely by split decision, 30-27 and 29-28 for Henry and a 29-28 for Gravely. Omar, take it.
Dude, this was a great fight. Another one with, I don't know what is going on with the card and the pace, but the pace from Victor Henry is absolutely insane. And credit to Tony Gravely, because although there was some slight melting the man's melting point is very, very high. I mean, he stuck with it through 3 rounds, and I think to the point where Victor Henry's like, dude, what the fuck else do I have to do? But Josh Barnett was screaming in this kid's corner, don't let him quit, or, don't let him up. Don't give him the opportunity not to work. Make this kid work every second of every minute of that fight. And Victor Henry had everything. It was a Muay Thai clinic for round 2, man. Teep, punch, step forward, punch, kick, teep, step back. I mean, he was putting all kinds of shit together. It was really crazy to watch. His takedown defense in round 2 specifically, I thought was really good. I thought he fucked up in round 1. He gave him his hips. I think it was just a real miscalculation in one of those exchanges early on. But it was a hell of a fight, man. A real hell of a fight. I did think that Victor Henry personally won all 3 rounds. I'm not sure how Mark feels about it. I know there was some dispute about, whether Victor Henry won all 3 or whether he won 2. I don't think in any realm Gravely won 2 out of 3. I can tell you that. But I do think the right person won, personally.
Okay, Mark.
This was a hell of a fight. I loved this fight. I've watched it twice just because live I thought it was Henry's, and then I saw on MMA Decisions that a lot of people gave it to Gravely. Both 1 and 3 were very close. So it's another one where I guess I get it. I scored it for Henry, and I'm glad that he got it because he absolutely, to steal Omar's phrase, put on a Muay Thai clinic in round 2. That was a super clear round, and the other 10 minutes were a toss-up. So I like that it went Henry's way. Those boys went to war, though. Neither man had any quit in them. Henry, by round 2, turned it up and was flowing. He was piecing Gravely up bad at times, and Gravely would not go away. He battled back in round 3. To Henry's credit, he got tired in round 3, and he just decided, all right, I'm going to walk in tight into like phone booth range and just make this a dogfight. And he earned that thing, in my opinion. So it was an impressive win for Henry, but an impressive showing from both guys.
Okay, Ariana Lipski, unanimous decision over J.J. Aldrich at women's flyweight. Mark, staying with you, give us your take.
I don't know where Ariana Lipski's takedown D came from in this fight. I don't think Aldrich ever would have believed if you told her that she wasn't going to be able to get Lipski down a single time. But she couldn't, and she was stuck striking, and JJ just got beat up all fight, man. Lipski was faster. She was the more varied striker, and she was one step ahead in the striking all fight long. So that is the biggest UFC win for Lipski thus far, I would say. Legitimized her a bit.
Yeah, man. Omar?
I think that was the best Lipski that we've ever seen. Like Mark said, takedown defense was on point, but not to mention that the combinations that she was throwing together in that fight. I mean, she wasn't hitting Lipski with just one shot and moving around. She was piecing Lipski, or I'm sorry, she was piecing Aldrich up a lot through 3 rounds. It even got to the point where Aldrich kind of went for some Hail Mary trips and takedowns in round 3, found herself trying to get up off the ground with her ass getting beat all the way up there. So I thought it was a fantastic showing for Lipski. Very dominant performance from Lipski. Answered a lot of questions I thought about where her overall game was, how well-rounded she is. So far, so good.
Okay. Bruno Silva, round 2 submission over Tyson Nam. Omar, go.
Yo, anybody know if this kid's jaw is broken? Because getting kicked in the face like that, that was the worst, dog. That was the worst. And I think, and my wife was like, wait, so that's not it? So he gets like half knocked out and then he got choked out later? That's correct. That is correct. That was a rough night for Tyson Nam, man. Not how I expected that fight to go. But Bruno Silva's a beast, and that up kick, that front kick, I should say, was absolutely devastating. Crazy.
Okay, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, round 1 in this thing was a good competitive round. You know, Nam was pressuring kind of how he always does. Silva was moving pretty well. He was using the kicks to keep Nam off him. And then I don't know if it was Silva's corner that told him Nam was open up the middle or if he just saw it himself. But he came at it round 2, threw that kick right away. Massive kick to the jaw, front kick. Somehow Nam survives it, but soon enough, Silva just savagely laces up a rear naked choke and puts Nam to sleep. So big win for him, and he's another guy who's dangerous everywhere.
Okay, last one. Let's see. Carlson Harris, UD over Jared Gooden. Mark, go.
Gooden carries big power, and he certainly knows that and fights that way where he's looking for his one shot, but he just fights too slow and flat-footed for me. I know it was short notice, but it's not the first time I've thought that about him, and Harris was just a tough matchup. You know, he can do a bit of everything. He was able to vary his attack to kind of keep Gooden defensive all fight, and then he realized he had a big grappling advantage, and he just leaned on that the rest of the way and really worked Gooden down there. So good win for him. And honestly, his only loss through 4 UFC fights is to Shavkat. So Carlson Harris might be pretty solid.
Hell yeah, man. Omar, take it home.
Honestly, man, another one with a pace. I mean, the pace from him was pretty high, especially considering how big these boys were. A lot of wet blanket analogies I could throw in there for a lot of parts of that fight as well. I thought it was a good showing from Harris. I don't know how well that game plan is going to work, right? Like we were talking about, like the funnel of the elite. But it worked right now against Jared Gooden, and it might work for the next 2 or 3 guys up until we really get to the tippity top.
Hell yeah, man. All right, that does it for this week's lightning round.